Have you ever wondered what makes certain individuals achieve power? What makes them so convincing? One possible explanation lies in the inability of the masses to distinguish right from wrong, a flaw that has been exploited to some extent throughout history. Walter Pitkin, an American professor, devotes more than 300 pages in his book, A Brief History of Human Stupidity, to reflecting on a topic that, at first glance, may seem simple, but which requires a deep and detailed analysis. Is human stupidity really as all-encompassing as they say? Or is it that, in our daily lives, we are always on the verge of making questionable decisions without realizing it? The contrast between intelligence and ignorance is present at every turning point in history. Mark Twain suggested a practical method to avoid falling into the traps of stupidity. It's better to remain quiet and avoid looking foolish than to speak and confirm that impression. But how do you know when you're making a mistake? In 1976, the historian and economist Carlo Cipolla launched a provocative reflection. He identified 5 laws of human stupidity, the first of which was quite revealing. Most of us underestimate the number of stupid people around us. But do we really know the impact that this ignorance can have on our lives? The second law is even more impactful, as it states that the likelihood of someone acting stupidly is not related to any personal or social characteristic. In other words, we are all vulnerable to this behavior regardless of who we are. If you're thinking about these ideas and how they apply to our daily lives, enjoy the video and share it with your friends. And don't forget to comment below on what you think about this dynamic between intelligence and stupidity. Stupidity, as an uncontrollable force, doesn't choose who it affects. It doesn't discriminate between rich and poor, intellectual and ignorant, wise or savage. Cipolla accurately observes that the actions of the stupid are universal. The third of his laws describes this phenomenon as destructive behavior. Stupid people harm others without any personal benefit, and often come out even worse. The origin of the word stupidity goes back to the Latin stupidus, which evokes the feeling of being dazed, confused, and unable to act. Over time, it came to be associated with a lack of intelligence and judgment. In contrast, intelligence, from intelligentsia, is the ability to make rational decisions, to understand the world and deal with it effectively. Cipolla's fourth law, which reaffirms an earlier point, reveals that rational people often fail to recognize the destructive potential of stupidity. Simply associating with the stupid is a serious mistake that can have devastating consequences. This failure of perception is not limited to individuals who are considered intellectually superior. Even those who think they are well informed can fall into the trap of stupidity by underestimating the influence that irrational actions can have on the collective. Cipolla, in his fifth law, argues that the stupid are the most dangerous of all. Unlike the bad, who have a predictable pattern of behavior, the stupid operate unpredictably, often causing incalculable damage. In his analysis, Cipolla divides humanity into 4 categories: the unfortunate, the intelligent, the evil, and the stupid. The unfortunate act in ways that harm themselves, but somehow help others. The intelligent generate benefits for themselves and others. The bad, on the other hand, act selfishly, harming others to achieve their own goals. And the stupid ones, they cause harm for no gain, or even harm themselves, without any awareness of what they are doing. The greatest danger of the stupid is that they are unaware of their own nature. While the other groups have some level of self-perception, the stupid live oblivious to the impact of their actions. Cipolla explains that instead of seeing intelligence and stupidity as absolute qualities, they should be seen as gradations. A person can display characteristics of intelligence and cruelty at the same time, or be both evil and ignorant, depending on the context. The true judgment about the stupidity of an action should be made by the effects it causes, not by the intentions of the agent. Even if an act seems foolish, if it doesn't result in harm, it can't be classified as stupid. This is what distinguishes eccentric behavior, which can be harmless, from destructive behavior, which causes real damage. An irrational act can be brilliant, while a solemn and rational action can actually be profoundly stupid. In The Power of Stupidity, writer Giancarlo Libradi expands on Cipolla's observations, analyzing the social effects of stupidity and its unpredictable nature. Libradi also proposes that all of us, regardless of how we see ourselves, carry a greater dose of stupidity than we realize. The chaotic world we live in, combined with our tendency to make mistakes, reveals that no one is exempt from acting irrationally. We often project our faults onto others, and this projection can be, according to Cipolla, a sign of malice. For him, the truly stupid are those who believe that stupidity is something exclusive to others, never recognizing this trait in themselves. Libradi, for his part, complements this view by stating that the real foolishness lies in not admitting that we are all, to some degree, susceptible to stupidity. Recognizing our own limits is fundamental. Admitting that rationality has boundaries, especially our own, is an essential step towards understanding how we function and make decisions. Libradi also points out that collective stupidity tends to be much more dangerous than the sum of individual foolishness. While intelligence requires planning and coordination to generate positive effects, stupidity spreads more easily and quickly and can become an immeasurable, uncontrollable, and overwhelming force. One of the clear symptoms of stupidity, according to Libradi, is stubbornness. The unwillingness to revise our beliefs or correct mistakes, even in the face of overwhelming evidence to the contrary, results in a stubborn attachment to appearances. This only increases the damage caused by ignorance. The incessant search for coherence and the obsession with self-image are characteristics of irrational behavior, something that reinforces the idea that, once a decision has been made, it is more difficult to admit a mistake than to continue in the illusion that we have always been right. This phenomenon of resistance to change, even in the face of contrary evidence, was explored by psychologist Leon Festinger, who created the theory of cognitive dissonance. According to Festinger, people feel uncomfortable having to hold conflicting beliefs, and in order to alleviate this discomfort, they often look for justifications to maintain their opinions, even if they are irrational. This behavior is a psychological defense against the discomfort caused by internal incoherence. For example, if they support one political party but begin to sympathize with the proposals of another, instead of changing their position, many seek arguments to justify their initial loyalty. Reasoning becomes contorted, and even irrational ideas can seem logical if supported by sophisticated arguments. This dynamic can be seen in many old-fashioned beliefs that, however illogical, persist without question, such as the idea that drowned women float on their stomachs to hide their genitals, a pseudoscientific myth that has endured for centuries. Robert Sternberg, a renowned psychologist, delves into this issue in his book, Why Can Smart People Be Foolish? He argues that foolishness is not exclusive to the ignorant. Even the brightest can act foolishly, especially when they believe they are above error. In the West, the education system focuses so much on developing logical and academic intelligence that it neglects other fundamental aspects of rational thinking, such as practical common sense. Sternberg says that he once received an email from someone who dreamed of being the smartest person in the world by simply memorizing the Encyclopedia Britannica, an extremely limited view of true intelligence. The behavior we consider foolish is often not opposed to formal intelligence, but conflicts with practical wisdom, which is the ability to apply knowledge wisely and for the common good. True intelligence lies not only in the accumulation of data, but in the ability to use it to promote collective well-being, something that stupidity, with its distorted values, prevents. Stupidity often manifests itself most clearly when people make rash decisions driven by emotions. A classic example of this is the businessman who, on losing an important contract, acts impulsively to damage his own company. Instead of thinking about the consequences for his financial stability, his employees, or his reputation, he puts revenge above all else. This selfish behavior, with no long-term vision, is responsible for many downfalls in the business world, as well as in the field of personal and political relationships. Another striking historical example is the Trojan War, which lasted for years due to the vanity and whim of a single person, resulting in the deaths of thousands. History is full of cases in which impulsive decisions, made for immediate personal interests, sacrifice the collective well-being. True wisdom, unlike simple intelligence, is not limited to maximizing one's own interests. It seeks to balance personal needs with the collective good, taking into account long-term impacts. While a brilliant mind may be capable of extraordinary feats, it can be devoid of wisdom if it fails to consider the well-being of others and the consequences of its actions for society. Sternberg explores the cognitive flaws that often cause even the most intelligent people to make mistakes. The first distortion is excessive optimism, where a person, convinced of their own ability and power, ignores the possible negative consequences of their actions. Next comes egocentrism, where a person focuses exclusively on their own interests, neglecting the effects their choices can have on others. Power often has the effect of corrupting, and even well-meaning people can go astray by prioritizing their own desires over others. The most serious consequence of this irrational behavior comes when circumstances change and one-time allies drift away. For Sternberg, the antidote to this cycle of foolishness is wisdom, which combines intelligence and creativity in a balanced way, always considering the long and short-term impacts. The economic collapse of 2008 serves as a perfect example of how a lack of wisdom can have devastating consequences. Banks and mortgage companies made decisions based on quick wins, without reflecting on the long-term risks. When the crisis hit, the impact was catastrophic, affecting millions of people who had no direct responsibility for the mistakes made by those in power. Shermer, in his article Why People Believe Strange Things, also points out how individuals, even those with great renown, can fall into irrational thinking traps. He cites Linus Pauling, a Nobel-winning chemist who went on to defend the idea that vitamin C could cure serious diseases such as cancer, without any solid scientific basis. This case serves as a reminder that even the brightest people can make catastrophic mistakes based on personal beliefs. Shermer notes that something common in one context can seem absurd in another, depending on time and place. He defines an outlandish belief as something rejected by experts, which defies logic or lacks evidence. The idea that vitamin C cures diseases, for example, has been widely disseminated but lacks scientific basis. Our beliefs come not only from logic, but from influences such as family, friends, the media, and personal experiences. We rarely analyze rationally, often confirming what we already believe and ignoring what contradicts our view, a phenomenon known as confirmation bias. Although intelligence is no guarantee against unfounded beliefs, more intelligent people tend to be less susceptible to superstition. Livraki classifies types of irrational behavior: the anxious hyperactive, who starts but never finishes projects, and the naive optimist, who believes that everything is going well, even without foundation. At the other extreme, there is the hopeless skeptic, who sees failure in everything, and the chronic blamer, who believes that everything is the result of their failures. Mark Twain, with his humor, illustrates how to deal with nonsense. He received a letter with the word idiot in it, and ironically replied that he had had many unsigned letters, but never a signature without a letter. This shows how sometimes it's better to confront ignorance with humor. The combination of ignorance and self-confidence is dangerous. When these qualities come together, we take exaggerated risks without having the necessary skills, which can result in devastating failures. Gustave Le Bon, in his Psychology of the Masses, explains how stupidity intensifies in groups. When people get together, they lose their individual judgment and act impulsively, making manipulation easier. Stupidity becomes social, not just individual. Martin Luther King Jr. summed it up well. Nothing in the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscious stupidity. Did you like the video? Subscribe to the channel for more mind-expanding reflections. And of course, leave a comment with your ideas and thoughts. As always, let's continue this dialogue about how we evolve together. Until the next video.